Hello everyone and welcome back to Learn English Naturally. I'm Ethan.
And I'm Emma. And today we're going to drop a truth bomb that might shock you.
Oh, here we go. Emma's feeling dramatic today.
I'm serious, Ethan. We're talking about the one way, the only way to actually become fluent in English. And spoiler alert, it's probably not what you think.
Before we dive in, let me ask our listeners something. How many of you have been studying English for years? Maybe you know thousands of words, you can ace grammar tests, but when it comes to actually speaking, it's like your brain freezes?
Exactly. Or you understand everything when you're watching Netflix, but the moment someone speaks to you in real life, it's like they're speaking Martian.
I love that. So today, we're going to solve this mystery once and for all.
All right, drum roll, please. The only way to become fluent in English is to stop studying English.
Wait, what? Emma, did you hit your head this morning?
I know it sounds crazy, but hear me out. When I say stop studying English, I don't mean stop learning. I mean stop treating English like a school subject that you memorize and regurgitate.
I see where you're going with this. You're talking about the difference between learning about English versus learning to use English.
Exactly. Think about it. How did you learn your native language? Did you study grammar rules when you were 3 years old?
Well, I was a very advanced 3-year-old. No, but seriously, I learned by listening to my parents, copying what they said, making mistakes, and gradually getting better.
Right. You learned through exposure, repetition, and, this is key, emotional connection. You learned because you had to communicate. You wanted that cookie. You needed to tell someone you were hurt. You wanted to share your excitement about seeing a dog.
So the big secret is natural acquisition instead of formal study?
Not instead of, in addition to. But here's the thing most people get wrong. They spend 90% of their time studying and only 10% actually using the language. It should be the other way around.
All right, let's talk about what I call the fluency trap. Emma, you've seen this with students, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. Students come to me and say, I've been studying English for 10 years, but I'm still not fluent. And when I ask them what they've been doing, it's always the same story. Textbooks, grammar exercises, vocabulary lists.
It's like trying to learn to swim by reading books about swimming. You might understand the theory perfectly, but the moment you jump in the water,
You sink. And here's another trap, perfectionism. People are so afraid of making mistakes that they never actually practice speaking.
this reminds me of my friend Carlos from Colombia. He could write perfect English essays, knew more grammar rules than most native speakers, but he was terrified to order food at a restaurant.
What changed for him?
He got a job at an international company where he had to speak English every day. Within 6 months, he was more fluent than people who had been studying for decades.
That's the magic ingredient right there, necessity. When you need to use English to achieve something you care about, your brain shifts into high gear.
So let's get practical. What does this only way actually look like in practice?
Great question. First, you need to create what I call English islands in your life. These are activities you do entirely in English, not for learning, but for enjoyment or necessity.
Give us some examples.
Sure. Maybe you love cooking. Start following English cooking channels on YouTube. Not to study English, but because you genuinely want to learn those recipes. The English learning happens as a bonus.
I love this. It's like learning through the back door. Your conscious mind is focused on the cooking, but your unconscious mind is absorbing the language patterns.
Exactly. Or, if you're into fitness, join English-speaking fitness communities online. If you love gaming, play games in English. The key is choosing activities you do anyway, but doing them in English.
Now, here's something important. This doesn't mean you should throw away your grammar books. But grammar should support your communication, not replace it.
Think of grammar like the skeleton of a body. Important? Absolutely. But nobody falls in love with a skeleton. They fall in love with the whole person, the way they move, speak, express emotions.
That's actually a brilliant analogy. So grammar gives structure, but fluency comes from the flesh and blood, the real communication.
Let me break this down into what I call the 4 pillars of natural fluency. Are you ready to take some notes, listeners?
Ooh, I love frameworks. Hit us with pillar number 1.
Pillar 1, comprehensible input plus emotion. This is based on Stephen Krashen's research, but with my own twist. You need lots of input, listening, and reading, but it has to be slightly above your level and emotionally engaging.
What do you mean by emotionally engaging?
Content that makes you feel something. If you're bored, your brain isn't fully engaged. If you're laughing at a comedy show, frustrated by a news story, or excited about a documentary, your brain is creating stronger neural pathways.
So instead of listening to boring English textbook audio, you might watch a thriller series that keeps you on the edge of your seat?
Exactly. Your brain is so focused on finding out what happens next that it absorbs the language without resistance. I had a student who became fluent watching Korean dramas dubbed in English because she was obsessed with the storylines.
That's genius. What's pillar 2?
Pillar 2, active output in safe spaces. You need to speak and write, but in environments where making mistakes is not just okay, it's expected and celebrated.
This is huge. Most people practice in high-pressure situations where they're terrified of being judged.
Right. Find your safe spaces. Maybe it's talking to your pet in English. Yes, really. Or recording voice messages to yourself. Or joining beginner-friendly online communities where everyone is learning together.
I actually know someone who practices English by giving cooking commentary while she cooks alone. She pretends she's hosting a cooking show.
That's perfect. She's combining multiple elements, speaking practice, real-life vocabulary, and having fun. What matters is that she feels safe to experiment and make mistakes.
Okay, we're hooked. What's pillar 3?
Pillar 3, pattern recognition through repetition. But not boring repetition, meaningful repetition. This is where most language apps get it wrong. They make you repeat "the cat is black" 50 times. But when will you ever need to say that?
So what's meaningful repetition?
It's when you encounter the same language patterns in different contexts that matter to you. For example, if you're into technology, you'll naturally hear, "How does this work?" in tech videos, podcasts, and forums. Your brain starts recognizing the pattern because it's useful to you.
Ah, so it's repetition with purpose. The pattern gets reinforced because you actually need it.
Exactly. And here's the beautiful thing. Once your brain recognizes a pattern, it starts generating similar sentences automatically. You don't have to think about grammar rules. You just know it sounds right.
This is why people who immerse themselves in English start saying things like, "It sounds weird," even when they can't explain the grammar rule.
Yes, their ear has been trained. Which brings us to Pillar 4, social connection and cultural context.
Tell us more about this one.
Language is fundamentally social. You don't just learn words and grammar. You learn how to connect with people, how to be funny, how to show respect, how to express disagreement politely. This only happens through real interaction.
So, joining English-speaking communities isn't just about practice. It's about learning the culture behind the language?
Exactly. Like knowing when to say, "I'm sorry," in English culture versus other cultures. Or understanding why Americans say, "How are you?" but don't always expect a detailed answer.
This reminds me of my friend from Germany who was technically fluent but struggled with small talk because it's so different from German culture.
Perfect example. He needed cultural fluency, not just linguistic fluency. And you can't get that from textbooks. You get it from real relationships and social situations.
This is all fantastic in theory, but how do you actually implement these 4 pillars? Where do you start?
Great question. Let me give you what I call the Fluency Triangle. You need to balance 3 types of activities every week.
I'm visualizing a triangle in my head. What goes on each corner?
Corner 1, passive consumption. This is your comprehensible input, watching, listening, reading for pleasure. Aim for at least 1 hour daily of content you genuinely enjoy.
And it has to be slightly challenging, right? Not too easy, not impossible?
Right. You should understand about 70 to 80%. If you understand everything, it's too easy. If you understand less than 60%, it's too hard and you'll get frustrated.
What's corner 2?
Corner 2, interactive engagement. This is where you participate, commenting on videos, joining discussions, having conversations. Even if it's just responding to social media posts in English.
So you're not just consuming, you're participating in the English-speaking world?
Exactly. You're becoming part of the community, not just observing from the outside. This is where the social connection pillar kicks in.
And corner 3?
Corner 3, creative expression. This is where you use English to create something. Write blog posts about your hobbies, make videos, tell stories, explain concepts to others.
Why is creativity so important?
Because when you create, you have to dig deep into the language. You can't just repeat what you've heard. You have to find your own way to express your unique thoughts and personality.
It's like the difference between karaoke and writing your own song.
Perfect analogy. Karaoke is fun and helps with rhythm and pronunciation, but writing your own song, that's where you really master the craft.
Before we move on, let's talk about what not to do. What are the biggest mistakes people make when trying to implement this natural approach?
Oh, I see these all the time. Mistake number 1, trying to do everything at once. People get excited and think they need to change their entire life overnight.
The New Year's resolution mistake, going from 0 to 100?
Exactly. They try to watch English news, listen to English podcasts, read English books, and join 5 English communities all in week 1. Then they burn out by week 2.
So what's the better approach?
Start with one English island. Master that for a month, then add another. Build habits gradually. If you love morning coffee, start by watching one English YouTube video while you drink your coffee. That's it. Make it so easy you can't fail.
What's mistake number 2?
Choosing content that's good for you instead of content you actually enjoy. I see people forcing themselves to watch BBC News when they hate news or reading classic literature when they prefer fantasy novels.
It's like forcing yourself to eat vegetables you hate instead of finding healthy foods you actually enjoy.
Perfect comparison. If you love gossip, watch English celebrity interviews. If you're into sports, follow English sports channels. There's no good or bad content, only content that engages you or doesn't.
What about mistake number 3?
Being a perfectionist about accent or grammar. I've seen students who can communicate beautifully, but they're obsessed with sounding like a native speaker from a specific region.
But isn't pronunciation important?
Communication is important. If people understand you and you can express yourself confidently, you're fluent. There are millions of fluent English speakers with different accents: Indian English, Singapore English, Nigerian English, Scottish English. They're all valid.
So fluency is about effective communication, not about copying a particular accent?
Exactly. Focus on being understood and understanding others. The accent obsession often becomes a barrier to actually practicing speaking. All right, let's give our listeners something concrete to try. Ethan, are you ready for this?
I'm ready. What do you have in mind?
The 30-day English immersion challenge, but not the kind you think. This isn't about moving to an English-speaking country. It's about creating immersion wherever you are.
I love it. So what are the rules?
Rule number 1. Choose 3 activities you enjoy and commit to doing them in English for the next 30 days. Could be watching YouTube videos, listening to podcasts, reading news about topics you care about.
Rule number 2. Find at least one person to practice speaking with regularly. This could be a language exchange partner, an online tutor, or even talking to yourself in the mirror. Yes, that counts.
Absolutely. Rule number 3. Keep a voice journal on your phone. Every day, record yourself talking about your day for just 2 minutes. Don't worry about mistakes, just talk.
Rule number 4. Join at least one English-speaking community online related to your interests. Participate, comment, engage, don't just lurk.
And rule number 5. This is crucial. Measure your progress by communication success, not grammar perfection.
Did you make someone laugh?
Did you successfully order food? Did you understand a movie without subtitles? Celebrate those wins.
As we wrap up, let's circle back to our main point. The only way to become fluent in English is to
Stop treating it like a subject to study and start treating it like a tool to use. You become fluent by living parts of your life in English, not just studying about English.
And remember, fluency is not a destination, it's a journey. Even native speakers are constantly learning new words, expressions, and ways to communicate better.
The beautiful thing about this approach is that it's actually more fun. Instead of boring grammar drills, you're exploring your interests, connecting with people, and growing as a person, all while becoming fluent.
Before we go, let me ask our listeners, what's one English island you're going to create in your life this week? Maybe you'll start following an English podcast about something you love, or join an online community about your hobby.
Whatever you choose, remember, progress over perfection, communication over correctness, and courage over comfort. You've got this.
Thanks for joining us today on Learn English Naturally. I'm Ethan.
And I'm Emma. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, And most importantly,
Keep natural.